Namaste. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Regal Live, episode 59. I am delighted and absolutely honored to welcome all of you to meet our guest today. Our guest speaker is Dr. Sanjay Kalra, a leading endocrinologist with over 2 decades of experience. He is a passionate educator and researcher. He has served on vital positions at prestigious institutions in the field of endocrinology and extremely deeply involved in the education sector of the same field as well. In line of his passion, he has had over 23,000 plus citations of his publications. And apart from excelling and serving as an expert in the field, he is also an ICF coach. Today, we are here to focus on his unique perspective about the 𝘕𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗃𝗱 being a timeless reservoir of knowledge as we know it for us coaches and in life in general. A very, very warm welcome, Dr. Kalra.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being part of this program, and it's a pleasure being part of the larger coaching fraternity.
Thank you for being here. To all our listeners, if you do have any comments or questions or notes at all, please drop them in the chat. Very, very thankful for you to be joining in and listening as well. Dr. Kalra, just diving right in. I do want to reference a couple of papers. For example, the Bhagavad Gita Demystified for Doctors was one of your papers. You also wrote about Bhagavad Gita for the physician, and so many in the same line, right? So, out of curiosity, how did you bring about this perspective to begin with? Could you please share that?
I guess we should thank the Bhagavad Gita and the hero of the Bhagavad Gita, that is Lord Krishna, for bringing it to sort of inside my head. But what I did realize as a doctor was that as doctors, we do a fairly good job of treating the biomedical part, the biophysical part of each patient. So we are quite good at telling them how to control their glucose, their blood pressure, how to get rid of their fever or their joint pains or abdominal pains, whatever. But that's just part of health. And even when we look at the WHO definition of health, that includes emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. So we were not working on that. And I would find out many times, and this is how coaching and medicine work together. When the coachee comes to you and the coachee says something, the good coach is the one who is able to think below that, who is able to think at a different level. It's not that you are forcing your coachee to think the way you want to think. That is never the aim of coaching. Neither is it the aim of medicine that I want to change my patient's value systems or preferences or likes or dislikes. It's we want to find out what's going on inside them, what that feeling is. So the good coach is the one who is able to ask the right questions so that that feeling gets expressed. Similarly, in medicine, what I realized was many times patients were coming to us with so many unsaid, unspoken emotions. First of all, listening to them, understanding what they're saying. Second, getting them to take charge of their own health, their own life. This was challenging. And the best way to learn how to do that is to read the Bhagavad Gita. So I think that's how it came in. It's become part and parcel of me. Shruti, I would be the first person to say that I myself have to go back to it. Whenever there is a challenge, whenever there is an obstacle, whenever I need help, I have to go and read it again. And the same book, I read it in English because I'm not very good at Hindi and I cannot read Sanskrit, unfortunately. I read it in English, but those same English words, phrases, they have different meanings for me each time. It's never the same book.
That is such a wonderful perspective that you bring about, that you read the book, the Bhagavad Gita, so many times and it means something else. So our experience is kind of enticing our understanding as time goes by as well. Thank you for sharing that. While you talk about listening is important to patients bringing in these unsaid things, right? And I know there's a comment on the chat. It says listening to the client is coaching, and then, the patient and the doctor. So what is something about the Bhagavad Gita that you think people can walk towards, as part of finding purpose or path in life?
This is an important question, and I would like to mention that not only does it have a religious connotation, it is also a perfect question from a secular point of view. So, the Bhagavad Gita is very pragmatic, it's very practical, it's grounded, it's down to earth. That is the beauty. The Bhagavad Gita kind of anticipates whatever kind of problems you may face in life. And there are umpteen problems and challenges that any of us may face. But the Gita is able to bring that all together. And then let us say I've got 1,000 problems. The Gita is able to put that and make it very concise. And, whatever kind of challenges I face as an individual, whatever kind of experiences I have, and whatever kind of people I meet, it's able to sort of give a very beautiful classification. So, Shruti, apart from this practicality, and we see so many comments coming in, when we look at this word taxonomy means how you classify all living beings. So, Darwin classified them into, first of all, living and non living, then plants and animals, then animals were classified into vertebrates and vertebrates. That makes it easy for us to understand. There will always be exceptions, like there might be some living organisms we are not sure whether they are plants or animals. Some people we identify as male and female, but there are many of us who identify as transgender persons. So the exceptions will always be there. But Bhagavad Gita is able to give us a classification of three, the Trigun theory, which is followed by Ayurveda. And this classification helps me as a doctor, as a scientist, and as a coach. So this is the beauty, the practicality, and the way they have developed such a beautiful taxonomy for us, which is secular.
Mm. Thank you. We do have a question. How does one evaluate that the person coming in is bringing a therapy-related concern or a coaching-related issue, especially in the medical field? Would you like to share your thoughts on that, please?
Thank you, Yashika. Yeah. So when the person comes in and says, uh, why have I got thyroid? My sister hasn't got it. My neighbor doesn't have it. So you actually have to be able to think. It might be a simple biomedical or therapy related concern, but the patient actually might be saying, um, will my husband feel that I'm as attractive as before, even though I've got thyroid? Will I be able to have children? Will I be able to live for 100 years? Today, I had a boy, a very nice, sweet boy, 18 years old. He had been living in Portugal. So he's Indian, he's from Haryana, he knows Hindi. And he must be knowing reasonable Portuguese because he lives there, but I'm sure he's not an expert at Portuguese. What he heard from his doctor was he got diagnosed as having type 1 diabetes there. What he heard was, you will live for only 4 or 5 years. So he got depressed, he stopped the medicine, he came back home. I'm very sure the doctor didn't say that. The doctor would have said, if you don't take your diabetes medication, then you may live for only 4 or 5 years. But I'm also sure that that Portuguese doctor was not able to understand our boy's concerns. Our boy would have been worried, will my Schengen visa be maintained or not? Will I become a Portuguese citizen? I hope you won't kick me out. You won't deport me because I've got type 1 diabetes. Will I be able to study and work in Portugal? These would have been the concerns. The doctor may not have been able to communicate. So you just listen with both ears open, and that sense of empathy, that sense of compathy. Another word, Yashika, is empathy means I should be able to put myself in my clients' or patients' shoes. But compathy, we should be able to put ourselves in our clients' or patients' heart. So I guess it comes from time. But you do try to listen. And how do you evaluate? You do what we call fishing. So patient says, uh, I'm worried about my future. So then you go laterally. What exactly in the future are you worried about? What makes you think that you need to worry at all? So as you ask these questions, the client and the patient both will open up. That is the same for medical field and for coaching.
Hopefully that answers your question, Yashika. Thank you for asking, and thank you for sharing that. Uh, it's so many experiences, right, that you're going through with this concept of bringing in the Bhagavad Gita at this point, right? I do want to ask, there is also a sense of a sort of leadership that is required in the medical field, right? Because as much as we want to bring in the Bhagavad Gita as part of coaching, even in the medical field specifically, there is a certain doctor's expertise that we'll be playing. So, how does that combine with compathy that you called out? Can you share a little about that, please?
It is a challenge, and none of us as doctors are trained in it. Like Mr. Subhash says, the book speaks to us differently each time we read it. I fully agree with that. Similarly, in the medical field, each patient and each patient doctor encounter is different. Supposing there is an immediate life threatening, then the first thing the doctor should do is to fix up the blood pressure, the sugar, give the IV drip, admit whatever is required. But while
Mm,
you're doing that, after that, then you can think about the Gita and about compathy. On the other hand, if there is nothing immediately life threatening,
mm,
limb threatening, or organ threatening, nothing
mm,
that threatens you immediately, then I think that compathy part should come in simultaneously or might have to kick in first. So it depends upon the urgency of the situation. Uh,
mm,
that's one aspect. The second is both can coexist together. You can be compathic and competent at the same time. And compathy will come just from inside.
mm,
I again would admit that I have to keep on reminding myself to be compathic. And like Mr. Subhash says, and Anirudhji says, in the morning at 10 a.m., when you're healthy and you're okay, then you can be more compathic. By 2 p.m., towards the end of the clinic, you get tired, you get jaded yourself. That would be similar for a coach. You've done 6 sessions of coaching, and then the term that we use is compassion fatigue. So
mm,
you have to here, Shruti, be aware of what compassion fatigue is. You find
mm,
out those warning signs in yourself, and before you sort of break down or before you burn out, you fix the fatigue right at the very beginning. Maybe take a cup of tea, take a break, find a friendly patient to gossip with, find a less stressful coachee to work with, and then you're
mm.
back on the job. So that's how you do it. You do a triage, you do what is required as per that moment.
It's such an insightful thing, right? Even not just for medical professionals, but for other professionals as well, to know that compathy and competence go hand in hand. And thank you for sharing like those tidbits, right? That what can you do if you are in a compassion fatigue kind of a moment? With that, I do want to. It kind of gives me leeway to move into the next. Like while we are talking about this, I want to connect this for our listeners to coaching more so is what are certain best practices that you think uh, as coaches we can take away from the insights that we're learning from Bhagavad Gita in combination with the medical field and your expertise? So, what are certain best practices?
The Gita really helped me, Shruti. So when I began my journey as a coach, I started for ACC, and we had great teachers. We were blessed with the best teachers. But then I had to do this 100 hours of training. So what happened? It had never happened in my life before, but I began getting this ear ache. My ears used to hurt during coaching sessions,
Mm,
and they wouldn't hurt when I was a coachee. They would hurt when I was a coach. I had to listen carefully. So
mm,
that's when I went back to the Gita and what the Gita told me. So I resonate with Yashika's comments when she says learner coach. So I still feel that I am a learner, Yashika. And I also resonate even more with Anirudh's emoji choice for compassion fatigue because I get fatigued virtually every day, not every day, virtually every day. But then I know how to catch it now at an early stage. So I fix it up. So I
mm,
have not broken down, I have not burnt out. I'm able to catch fatigue before it affects me. So,
mm,
what the coach can learn from the Bhagavad Gita is to be sattvic. To be sattvic means to be calm, composed, in a state of equipoise. It also
mm,
means that irrespective of what you're confronted with, you try to remain stable. Suppose you were not able to remain stable, you responded to a particular situation with anger, that is Rajsikta, or with apathy, that is Tamsikta. You
mm,
approach that response also with Satvikta. So which means I lost my temper at somebody.
Mm,
We have Mr. Man Singh, who is an industry leader from Haryana on the call. So supposing I spoke rudely with Mr. Man Singh, or I did not speak properly with him, I was too tired to speak. That moment has come and gone. Let it go. Don't dwell upon it too much. You move on to the next Kochi. So
mm,
Sattvika is a state of equipoise equanimity. You try to achieve that. Even if you're not able to achieve it every now and then, don't let it go to your head, to your heart. So one of
mm,
my friend coaches, she taught me. So I was doing this training as part of 𝘕𝘂. She's
mm,
from Bangalore, and she said, so I had lost my temper at a patient that day because of the daughter-in-law's fault. And
mm,
uh, on that day when I was in the afternoon, I had to be a coachee. So I told her, this is what I'm thinking about, and I'm so upset with myself. I've been a bad doctor. And her response was, "But let go." So Satvikta is also about letting go. I think that is what as coaches we should understand.
So, being aware of how our compassion fatigue is kind of kicking in, how are we aware about addressing that
Mhm.
and being sattvic, including the letting go? I'm sure all of us work on that concept as much as we possibly can, is the letting go. Uh, you did mention, thank you, Mansing, for being on call. There was a question: how do you navigate situations where you and your patients have different perspectives or expectations?
Yeah. So this may not be very relevant from a coaching perspective, but in general, in family, let's say you're not navigating, you're negotiating with someone. So in my OPD, this is so common. Somebody comes and says, I want such and such an Ayurvedic treatment. I will not take insulin. One response can be to be confrontational, to be Rajsik. You're telling a lie, you're illiterate, you have no idea what's going on, go to hell. It won't work. Another way would be a more diplomatic, not confrontational, but and not competitive, but a collaborative thing. Thank you for bringing this to our notice. You want to take such and such herb. You are welcome to do that, but please make sure that you do this along with that. Or you are afraid that this particular medicine will maybe cause side effects. Let me give you another medicine, or let me tell you how to change your diet so that you don't suffer from these side effects. The key here is do not be confrontational, avoid being competitive, and
Hmm.
try to be collaborative. That's one key. The second is that whenever you have to speak with someone, whenever you're answering, your first answer should be yes. Yes, madam, I understand. However, let's look at it this way. Instead of saying, no, madam, you are wrong. So it's just about that first word. And another thing to man would be that if you want to ask a question, so the question actually is, why are you asking this question? Let's say I want to ask man. Uh, that's not a nice way to begin. It's rude. It can be viewed as being judgmental. It means I am superior and man doesn't know the answer. I just have to change that why. I do not have to ask, why are you asking this question? If I ask the question this way, Mr. Singh, what makes you think that this is important? Or what has happened in the last few days that makes you ask this question? So I just change the why to what. Or I can change you how. That's a wonderful thought. How did this thought come to your mind? Like you also asked, how do you navigate, which is a very pleasant question. So you make sure that your first answer should be yes, and you can follow with anything. The first question should never be why, it can be anything else. And this is in the Bhagavad Gita as well. Shruti, in chapter 14, Lord Krishna speaks about the penance of the mind, the penance of speech, and the penance of the body. These are three things that Lord Krishna teaches us: how to
Hmm.
have agreeable thoughts, agreeable speech, and agreeable behavior. And if we just read this, and we'd love to share simple articles with everyone who is logged in, we can do that through Legal Coaches. If you just follow this penance of thought, speech, and behavior, automatically life becomes very sattvic.
I do want to agree with one of our listeners, Rakhi Thar. She says, "You have an amazing aura, Dr. Kalra." I completely agree with that.
You are
With
kind, Rakhi. Thank you, Rakhi, for your words.
with what you've just said, just being collaborative also brings about the kind of notion of partnership that we talk about in coaching as well.
Yes.
Also, the beauty of asking questions. I so wonderfully put that we could switch our language a little, and also I'm reminded of acting classes when we say yes and. So what a wonderful tip that I'm taking away from this class. Just one quick last question is, does Gita help to bring a balance between compathy and detachment? Before we wrap up today, can you shed some light on that?
Thank you, Anu. And I noticed that Anu is also ACC, so she'd have gone through the same fatigue that I did. And we both made it. So three cheers, Anu, for that. It actually does help because the Gita teaches you to keep on working. So it tells you to do your duty with discipline and with detachment, with dispassion. That doesn't mean I should not be a passionate coach and I should not be a passionate doctor. I should put in my best into that. But at the same time, I should be detached from the results. So, supposing 1 out of 100 coaches ends up telling me, "I think you're an awful coach, and I would never recommend that anybody come to you," I should take that in my stride. That is what detachment means. And compathy means for the very next coachee who comes again, I should be smiling and I should be at my best. I should listen with both ears open. So actually, it does help. And then, like I said, I have to go back to it anytime there's a problem. So just keep on going back. All the chapters are useful. The best ones would be chapter 14 onwards, perhaps, which actually talk to a coach. They teach us what kind of coaching to do, and they are very secular chapters.
Thank you for the reference. I know we can have a longer conversation, but that's all the time we have today. Such an honor and a joy to talk to you, Dr. Sanjay Kalra. Thank you so much to everyone who's signed in, for everyone who's listening in later, wherever you are placed in the world. A very happy holiday season to you. Good evening, good night. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Sanjay Kalra, and talk to you all on the next Legal Life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for being with us.